This week on the bench, I'm going to tie you up the emerging carpet caddis. A lot of times fish want the fly sitting in that top surface film, and this fly accomplishes that. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. We'll tie the fly on a size 14 dry fly hook. We'll use some 8/0 olive thread to tie with, some orange Antron dubbing for the shuck, some dark olive Antron dubbing for the body, some brown Zelon for the wing, and a small brown hackle for the hackle. To start the fly off, I've taken my olive thread and tied it on the hook. Now we're going to take a little bit of this orange dubbing, and don't take a whole bunch. You just want one little clump that you're going to tie in the back of the hook. And once we get it tied in, you're going to notice this dubbing falls apart very easily, which is a good thing. That's what we want. You're going to tie it in and then pull it apart and just keep pulling it. Just pull it back until you get a nice, just real thin trailing shuck off the back of the hook. Should be about the length of the hook, and it should be very thin. For the next step, we're going to take our green dubbing and we're just going to dub it very thinly on the body. So just dub it onto your thread. And if you want, you can always form a dubbing brush or a dubbing loop, but I just like to dub it directly on the thread. And then we'll wrap it forward and then wrap over with our thread to form the body and keep it fairly thin. After you have the body tied in, take your brown Zelon, and what we're going to do is put one wing off to one side. So tie in your brown Zelon near the eyelet and tie in one clump there. Take a second clump and tie it in near the top of the hook, and then take a third clump and tie it in towards you, facing you a little bit, and that way you'll form a nice wing on the fly. This Zelon is fairly thin, so that's why I like to put in 3 clumps. After you tied in the 3 Zelon wings, what we're going to do is form one wing. Obviously they're all put together, and we're going to cut it to length. I like to pull it back just about the length of the body and trim it off there. Keep your wing fairly short. The last part to the fly is very critical. You want to keep the hackle as small as possible. You want it very small, so normally when we measure up the hackle, we'll measure it up the length of the hook gap. But I want mine shorter than that. I want that half the size, and I'm only going to take 2 turns of the hackle, no more than 2 turns. So let's tie it in near the eyelet. And then again, as I mentioned, cut off your excess and don't take any more than 2 turns on the hackle and tie it off. To complete the fly, we're going to whip finish the thread off, and then I like to take a little dab of head cement just to hold the thread all together. So that's the finished emerging carpet caddis. There's 2 patterns that I love to use on all the different rivers that I fish. One is the brown carpet caddis, and the second one is the emerging carpet caddis. They are great dry fly patterns.